Hey everyone, welcome back to Office Politics. I am your host, Jazmine Reed Clark, and this is where we talk about life after the offer letter. As you may know, we are knee-deep into a series all about entrepreneurship, and in the second episode of the series, I am speaking with Jamey and Margaret of J.Lowery, a lifestyle brand. In today's episode, we get into the nitty-gritty of motherhood, specifically during a pandemic and while an entrepreneur, how they cultivated grace and empathy to be the founding principles of their business, and so much more. A little bit about the team before we get started. Jamey and Margaret are the co-founders of a Southern-based luxury handbag line, J.Lowery. The two, who are lifelong friends, took their passions for style and fashion to create meaningful accessories for the people who inspire and influence them each day. The two founders, neither of whom have design experience, built their business and products by doing and learning. The collaborative duo are not only running a business and designing new collections, they are both currently mothers. So excited, hope you stick around. Let's get into this episode.
We started in 2019 when the two of us were looking for a handbag that we couldn't really find on the market, something that was distinguishable, edgy, timeless, one that was also functional, and then also affordable, which was, one of the main things. I think, we all aspire to have, the heritage brand handbags in our closet, but sometimes it doesn't work with what's in your bank account. So Jamey and I started sketching in 2019, flew off to New York, and the rest is kind of history. There's so many inspiring women in the South. And I think we realized there were few contemporary brands based in the Southeast region that we felt that represented those women. And we wanted to, create that here. So that's kind of the gist of the two of us, how we got started, and, a little bit about, why we're doing what we're doing.
I love that story. And I didn't quite realize just how you guys are thicker than sisters, closer than sisters, I almost feel. And with that said, who approaches who when it comes to the brand? Or is it we were drinking wine one night and we both had the idea at the same time? Who approached you for the brand?
I can probably...
Well, Margaret definitely approached me, I think. But it came from a place of, just love and friendship, really. Margaret had just moved and was in between jobs and was starting to look for, she had an amazing job with a social media branding company in Atlanta, and moved with her husband's new job to Birmingham. And when she got there, she just wasn't really finding her spot in Birmingham the same way and to the same level that she had in Atlanta. And so it really started just with friendly phone calls. I was like, well, why don't you try your own thing? And you have the experience, and you've just been, you've been running this department by yourself, and you've essentially been running a business within a business. Why can't you do it? And I think she called me back the next day or something and was like, I will if you do it with me. And I was like, okay. But yeah, I had a job at that point. I was a marketing director at a small business here in Memphis, Tennessee. And so when Margaret called me, it took me all of 5 seconds to answer, and I put in my notice, and we were off to New York literally 2 weeks, once my 2 weeks was up. And just, it started like that. But Margaret, I guess, technically approached me, but I think it was one of those things that I was waiting for that question for a long time, and you just don't even know until you actually get it, that is exactly what I wanted to do. And this was my opportunity, and this was our window to jump through.
I love that. In fact, I know later on I want to talk about leap of faiths and timing and grace. So it's interesting that those themes have always been a part of your story. And speaking of the story, online it says, you all are on a mission to build, by building a culture rather than building solely on a product. Our brand's core is not about the bags themselves, but the women who carry them. And I really do appreciate that you and a lot of other brands are thinking more about the women who already exist rather than perpetuate the like one size fits all aspirational model that I know I grew up with, and I'm sure you guys did too. So what inspired you to take on a different approach when it came to product conception? And when you are trying to look through this lens without, spilling any of your secret sauce, like how does it come? Like, for example, I love the ostrich bag that you have for pre-sale. So like, how does that come about, and who are you thinking of when you're designing that bag?
I think first off, we love this question. Like, we're really obsessed with it. We love that you pulled that and put it in that light, because I think it kind of hits it on the head for us. Like, from day one, Margaret and I were truly creating things for real women that we were seeing in everyday life. I mean, it couldn't have been more humble in its beginning. When we say that we wanted to just start a brand, we had a lot of mixed feelings. We're like, we don't want people to think we just up and did this thing and thought we could do it. But we really did have so many women around us that were so inspirational, and they were the inspiration. So, I mean, these are the moms that, like the moms I'm seeing in the carpool line, and, our friends who are nurses and teachers, and, just every different spectrum of life, but of real life. And I think, it might sound strange to say, but I think in our case, this is where our lack of formal design training kind of came into play, and was actually a blessing in disguise for us, because we don't feel, these immense pressures to like follow trend reports that are like being posted like 3 years ahead, or like we're not trying to, we're not having the next big thing or the next big like fabric or texture or use those things. So I think it really became like a strength for us, in that we could focus literally on people that were in real life. How are they using these bags? How are they most functional? How are they fitting into their closet and fitting into, we put a lot of emphasis on day to night, and like, can she wear this multiple ways? Can she take one strap, like take the crossbody strap off and carry it by the top handle, and it's dressy and it can go to a wedding now, and it was just, running errands. So I think, when thinking about who we were doing it for, it really hasn't evolved much, because we started at such a specific place. We were like, it's the people right in front of us. That's who we're making these things for. And we're not, we're not trying to make them for aspirational models, which that'd be awesome. But, we're not trying to, make them for someone who is, kind of a cookie cutter. It's for the everyday woman.
Exactly. In fact, last season I had on, they're also best friends turned business partners, power women, and their sort of like niche, if you will, is, corporate blazers, but with pockets. Because like, us girls, we like, if it has pockets, we are now obsessed. And it was so interesting because they both were working in sales beforehand, and they didn't go to design school. But they shared really similar sentiments of one is a working mom, one isn't, but they both understood the problems they faced with having to look a certain way at work, but not having the functionality of the everyday woman. So it's really beautiful to hear how what others could perceive as a blind spot can really be your superpower. And I think that goes across industries and parts of life. Yeah,
no doubt. Look at, obviously, like Spanx has been all over the news right now, but like, look at the origin of her story, that's like a perfect example. It was out of necessity. And so, not comparing us to Spanx, but,
one day.
But I think, women just by nature, we wear so many different hats. We have to be so incredibly nimble in everyday life. So that is the type of thing that Margaret and I think about when we design things, is we want to ensure first, obviously design is so important, but it bleeds into the textures that we choose, the colors that we choose. Everything is going to be where you can wear it more than one way. You can wear it across seasons. Like, we want you to get all the wear out of every design that we make, and we want it to truly complement and fit into your life seamlessly the way that it is.
I love it. And, as a consumer, I still flirt with the line of authenticity and aspiration. I want to be myself, which my style is very comfy, casual, cute, but I also want to look like a more evolved version of myself. I just turned 30, so I'm trying to upgrade my everyday wardrobe. But rather than looking in, I do still find myself looking around asking, like, what's cool? And at its healthiest, I'm able to experiment and, play dress up. And like Jamie, you have on ruffles, and I've been more into like the ruffly, puffy sleeves. But at its worst, I still think I could be sending myself the message of just look and see what she's doing and copy that. And I think that could really be a metaphor for career paths and life paths. Like, it would have been almost natural for you all to look at maybe your favorite handbag designer and be like, well, they went to FITM, so we need to enroll in FITM tomorrow. So when building a brand, how do you, if you're even able to articulate it, how do you stay healthy, sane, and fulfilled when part of your business is to study the competition and offer something new?
I mean, it's such a good question. And especially to like you saying that at the end about us not being handbag designers, but feeling that there's a certain path that you take. Of course, we already feel like imposters in the very beginning. And then we've never even started a business. So you're like, you constantly are looking to other businesses like, okay, well, they started around the same time we did, and they seem like they're so much further ahead, or they're doing this. Could that work for us? I think comparison it's so hard not to do because of what we're exposed to via social media. And it's something that Jamie and I talk about all the time, just because you kind of do yourself a disservice when you're comparing what you've done to someone else, because when you take what you've done, like if you look at where we've come from where we've started, we've done so much in our short amount of time. So you want to, applaud yourself for that, but then also think in terms of the future, like how are we going to continue to keep the ball rolling? What do we do? How do we keep ideas new and fresh?
I think I needed to hear that. And so I know it will resonate with so many listeners, but I don't think I've even had the thought before of, oh, there could be people looking at me. And I would want to say, honey, I am a sitting duck. Okay. Like, it's just like pedaling beneath the water. But that's a really healthy way to remind yourself. And when it comes to self-care, do you ladies have any favorite rituals or go-tos if you are just having one of those days where you're like, ugh, I'm comparing myself to Louis Vuitton again, or whoever it may be?
Right. I'm like, grab a friend. Like, that's my advice. Like, grab somebody and like be like, you got a sec? Like, can I buy you a coffee? Because I mean, it's gonna happen. Like, you just can't live in this day and age and not be hit with a comparison monster. Like, I mean, everything is yelling at you. You Instagram everything. I mean, social media alone, you're going to compare yourself to someone else. It's just impossible to avoid. It's all in how you handle it, obviously, and how you're able to almost build filters for it, I guess, in some way. But yeah, I would say Margaret and I that's the great thing about a duo is when I'm having a really terrible day, like she might be having a day where she's crushing and she's like, you know what, it's fine. Like we're doing what we needed to do. And it's all working out. And look at how far we've come. And, those reminders, we both have to, I mean, it's very easy, especially both being moms and new moms. And it's hard to stop and, reflect and remind yourself, like, look at what we've done. Like, look at how far we've come. But you have to stop and relish and remind yourself that of those initial goals that you set, why you're doing what you're doing. And if you can focus on those things, it's easier to drown out all the other noise, because it is just noise. Yeah.
And you touched on something really important, which is being a mother. So listeners know I don't have any children, but I'm in that phase where I'm seeing my friends become mothers, and I'm seeing that evolution right before my eyes. And, I remember during my first big girl internship, my mentor said to me that she felt conflicted. Do I become an executive or do I become a mom? And at this point, I'm 22, fresh out of college. And I was really taken aback. And over the course of that internship, it was an ongoing conversation because I really wasn't aware of the pressure that women felt that they had to choose Fast forward years later, I noticed when a woman was pregnant at work, comments would be like, oh, she won't be back after the baby would pop up. And obviously over the years, I've really seen and experienced that pressure to choose and to think that you can only choose one. But I do see that we're in the midst of this third wave of feminism. And as a society, do you think, as mothers yourselves, do you think we're evolving and or have made significant strides in making women and expanded family-focused couples not feel the pressure to choose between family and career?
I mean, we talk about this all the time, especially because I had never experienced it as far as having a baby and running a business. It's hard, especially to all the things that your body goes through, everything you deal with, psychologically, all of it. It's kind of funny that you brought this question up in the midst of like a national conversation of paid leave, because I feel like I've been seeing it literally everywhere in the past couple days. It really is something you do not know or understand until you go through it. And like Jamie said, William was here from the very beginning, and I could relate as much as I could as far as knowing that I would one day be a mother, and I would want that same patience and, lent to me, which, it's very hard to do. Like I watched Jamie, like she could not come to me. She could come to me, but she couldn't, or maybe felt like I couldn't understand yet. But when you finally have that child and you understand what women go through, I think it's not fair that, we would have to choose between one or the other. I think Jamie and I, from the beginning, have wanted our business to work for our lives and our lifestyles. And part of that is, when we have employees one day, we want to be able to provide them with a place of work that they wouldn't have to choose either. I mean, I think we are progressing again with having that national conversation around it. But there's still, a lot to be done. I really do not know how only years ago that people, like the husbands weren't as, not to say husbands weren't as supportive, but, they couldn't work from home, and they left immediately after the wife had the child. And I don't know, it seems incredibly insane that you'd have to do it on your own or to choose between the two.
Oh, absolutely. And even like my friends, who did choose to leave or go down to part-time after having a baby, I was very quickly educated on the costs that go into childcare, and that, it really is, moms are warriors. When we were dealing with a family emergency a few weeks ago, I was with family, obviously, and what moms can get done during a nap time, is
when you don't have enough time. That's when you you can conquer the world, truly.
Oh no! I was saying her name is Jess. I was like, oh my god, she's literally cramming like an 8-hour day into 3 hours because that's what she's got. And you both really touched on mom guilt, and if there was one answer, not only would you write like your next $1 million book, but you would probably not have the battle of balance. But over the course of motherhood, have you found any remedies to alleviate or reduce that feeling of mom guilt that is what I imagine inevitable when raising a family?
I think, Jamie has experienced this longer than I have, but I think a lot of the conversation, because it's come up so much between the two of us, and then, now I'm starting to experience it. I think we've realized that there's no such thing as a balance. I think it's all about boundaries, wanting to make sure that we're able to be present where we are in that moment. So if, like you're saying, if you have that nap time and we're at home that day, which we do work from home, you want to be able to focus and pay attention to what you need to get done at that moment. Again, tapping into wanting to build a business that works with our lifestyle. We don't want to feel like we're slaves to this business. We started it to have financial freedom and, freedom of time and, build our own schedules. But, we don't want it to ever become something that we're dreading. So like, how do we make sure that with our families, we're able to keep that balance or those boundaries in place? You've got to be fair to yourself. And then there are times like right now where childcare fell through and I'm bouncing him while I'm talking to y'all. And of course you just have to embrace those moments and those things happen. But I think part of it is trying to make sure we're keeping those boundaries intact and, for each other too. We got to be fair to ourselves and one another and our families and our business. Yeah.
I need that to be an Instagram quote because I swear to God, I am like this close to getting that tattooed on my forearm. There's no such thing as balance, but it's about boundaries. And it's something I've been working on in therapy hardcore this year because I didn't really realize I had no boundaries in any sense of my life. So thank you for sharing that and bestowing that wisdom. And as we've obviously just talked about, being a parent is hard, anytime, but I can't imagine particularly being a parent during the pandemic. There's a lot of important conversations going on, very hard conversations going on. And I think we're just so quick to shame and finger wag, but I truly believe every parent is doing their best with the best information they have that day. And the two words that always come to me are grace and empathy. So between business, parenthood, life, tell me, how has your relationship to grace and empathy evolved, and what role does it play in your business today?
I think that humility and going at things at with a humbled perspective, I hope that everyone continues that way, because for us, it's something that we have it's now concrete in our business. Go at everything with a humble perspective and just know that there's no easy fix. There's no quick fix to anything. Everything takes time. And I mean, 5 days out of the week, we're going to go at things with an empathetic and gracious and humbled perspective, because that's how you can see most clearly what's best for you personally. And that's how you can see most clearly what's best for your company as well.
If you're comfortable sharing, feel free to say pass. What healthy growing pains or lessons have you learned building a business with a friend?
I think about one, really quickly. I think so. Right when we started, we kind of divvied up tasks or, daily things just as they came. We're like, do you want to take this? And you take this. And it's not that we were so worried about stepping on each other's toes. And again, I know Margaret could crush everything if I gave it to her, and she knows I could do everything if, we didn't want to divide things up, but we weren't taking the time to stop, acknowledge each other's strengths and weaknesses and say, okay, look, what do you actually want to do within this company? And then, so I feel like that was it wasn't a mistake, but that was something that we did in the beginning that we would we would either end up running ourselves kind of ragged, or we'd have to stop and be like, okay, wait, what's going on? Do you want to take this now? Or do you want me to take it? When we clearly defined kind of our roles within the company and we settled into those positions, Margaret does more of, she focuses really on our sourcing, our manufacturing, our, all of our vendor relations. And then I kind of head up more of the marketing and, the front facing things, I guess. And once we kind of split those roles, and now we realize we're like, oh my gosh, number one, just from an efficiency standpoint, why did we not do this in the beginning? Right. Mainly that, we're like, wow, we're going to get a lot more done this way. But also, it just makes it a lot more Margaret can come in, and especially, I'll just take from my side in particular with the marketing things. I'll, pitch something to her, and then she'll pitch something back to me that's 30 times better than what I just said. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that's amazing. It's because it's a fresh perspective. It's fresh. I've been looking at it for weeks, and she, just looked, is thinking about it for the first time.
I love that. And what about you, Margaret? What lessons did you learn?
I think, which we're kind of experiencing this now, especially adding on as our business is growing and so are our families. We just brought on our first intern this fall, and she's kind of been the constant. Obviously, Jamey and I are always hands-on in the business, but she's kind of been our constant through the fall while both of us are leaving to have babies and that sort of thing. I think it's really eye-opening for us what tasks could be passed off. Not many people know this, but I am the fulfillment center. So I ship and handle all of the bags. I ship them, and as you grow, obviously we're getting more shipments and I don't have as much time. When my child is napping, that's when I've been packaging, and, you know, I have a little help to come in, but you're also like, is this the most efficient way of spending the little time that I do have? So I think it's kind of, I don't know, allowing for a lot of clarity with both of us is growing and having babies is what is the most important thing for us to be doing with our time, and how are we going to be able to delegate that to other people and hire on moving forward.
Before we get into our rapid fire, I would love to know, what can listeners look forward to from the brand, and what are you most excited about for 2022?
Well, we literally just had a call yesterday or the day before. We're so excited about some beautiful new spring things coming up. We are going to be playing with some new textures and kind of stepping outside of just our leather foundational core pieces. So we're really excited about that, to use some natural materials that we love in that time of year. But I mean, we're so thrilled to just get to do more designs. Like, I mean, Margaret and I, every time we go to start something, we're like, it's the most humbling thing in the whole world that like we're able to still do this. Like, we're like, people are still liking this. Like, this is amazing. So, I mean, I think it's just, and it's a really exciting time. We just had our fall winter drop, and it was just the most successful drop we've ever had. And it was, thank you.
Yeah.
It was just, I mean, it was just kind of a mind-blowing day. And, you know, Margaret had a newborn at home, and we're like sitting there on the phone, and it's just all these different dynamics within our company are just changing. You know, it's in our personal lives that's bleeding into, you know, how we run our business and how we think about things. And I love that. And like I said, I mean, I feel like we've been, you know, preaching like the same things over and over again about being nimble and being humbled and like all these things. But we're just kind of like settling into our positions as brand owners, I guess. And, you know, as co-founders of what type of leaders we want to be, what type of brand we want to build. And like, it's just been a really big growth year for us. And I think it's going to continue to be that way as we continue to grow our families one more time this year. Yeah, I mean, it's an exciting time for us personally, which I think is really pushing us and motivating us within the brand too.
And I'm sure it keeps you so inspired with all the life updates as well.
Oh, absolutely.
Definitely.
More motivated than ever.
That, yeah. And it does help us, like, okay, now that we have children, what's something that we can design that's even more functional? You know, like it kind of helps lead where we are in our personal lives, kind of helps lead some design aspects as well. So it's been, I don't know, lots of things to come.
Well, we're excited to keep up. And with that, we can jump right into the rapid fire. So I say this to every guest. Now, obviously, because you're a duo, feel free if, you know, one person wants to take it. If you both want to answer it, totally fine. And you can answer it as business owners or even in your past careers, like within marketing. So with that said, question number 1 is, when was a time, either professionally or personally, that you realized the right thing and the hard thing were the same?
Marge, I'll take this one. I mean, my immediate thought on that one is, I mean, I said earlier that it was an easy decision. In the grander scheme of things, it was. But, you know, leaving my job just immediately to start J.Lowery was a pretty big one. And I could definitely see how it was a hard decision. The business I worked for had been great to me. But yes, that was the hard thing to do. I mean, to leave a stable job. I had just moved to a new city. And I mean, I had only had a year, just shy of like a year and a half at that company. And I really felt like, you know, I'd built a good presence there and I was doing some good work that I really loved. But, you know, at my core, I knew the right thing to do was to take this leap. You know, you look at all of the factors, you look at where you are in your life, you look at the support system you have, and everything had just aligned for this to absolutely be like the window that I stepped through. So, you know, I always say, I'm like, it took me all of 5 seconds, and it did. I was like, yes, okay. But now we'll deal with the hard thing because I know this is the right thing. You know, that part was quick.
That's a perfect answer.
I definitely think I mean, that's my initial thought on that is, I mean, that was definitely the hard decision to make, to leave, a steady job with, I had a support system there, and with a team and friends and coworkers that were friends, and but to leave that, but it was definitely the right thing, and it's proving to be that more and more the further we get.
I love that. That's perfect. Yeah, a leap of faith, and it was definitely the perfect thing for you guys. And then what is the one thing about wealth management and or business that few people know but you wish everyone knew?
I'll kind of lean into this more. I mean, it can be wealth management too, but more of business. I mean, when I first started working, or, it's just really intimidating applying for jobs and, working for bigger companies. But I think the main thing I would tell someone is like, nobody has it all figured out. Even like huge corporations, like things are always changing and constantly evolving, and everyone has to shift gears and implement new policies and all these things. Like everything is trial and error, and no one has it figured out. I think that's the main thing. And it takes the intimidation out of it. I think I worked for a small business and was able to see, every aspect of the business, finance, operations, everything. And they were just constantly implementing things. If it worked, keep doing it. If it doesn't, take it out. So just no one has it all figured out, I think, is the main thing I would say.
No, that is really, when I say we've talked about giving ourselves grace, and that is probably when I think about the moments I cry most, it's feeling the pressure that I need to have it all figured out or know everything already. And it's always any piece of information we've ever learned, like there was always a first time we had to hear it. So that's a beautiful reminder. And Jamie, I'm sorry, it sounded like you wanted to add to that.
Well, Margaret just made me think of one that kind of goes off of what she said. And I feel like this goes more to someone that might be within a current job or within, but don't feel like you can't go to your upper superiors with things. I think there's, and it's exactly what you said, when you're coming, especially when you're coming into a new place, and it feels like, especially if you're coming in somewhere that has, these coworkers have been working together for a long time and they have relationships and things, you feel like you can't go to your superiors about certain things. I feel like that was, I was just talking about my previous position before I left to go start J.Lowery. And I really feel like they did a good job with me specifically building a culture where I felt like I could go and talk to them about things and saying, hey, like I'm at my bandwidth on this, and like I can't possibly do this anymore. So I'm going to have to, put this aside. I've got to rework my calendar. I had never had that before. Like at any of my other jobs before that, I always just felt like I would have to, like, you're burning the midnight oil and everything else is falling off too. And so you're just not really doing well at anything because you're not being honest. And I think that just kind of popped into my mind as something that I feel like I've learned. And I wish I was like, okay, I wish I would have done that at every other job, because most of them, they want the best work out of you and they want you to be happy. And so, I mean, if you're being honest with them, then it's only going to benefit both of you.
Oh, I can't, Jamie, like there was a job and it's interesting. I was just talking with this manager this week, catching up, and at that job on paper, killing it. But the one piece of advice or feedback I kept getting every performance review was learn to manage up, like speak up. And for many, many, many reasons, from, being a woman or being young or all these things, we feel like sometimes we can't speak up or we're going to be penalized if we do. And not to say that there aren't situations where that happens, because I know there are, but there's also often space for you to raise your hand and have open communication. And I think that is perfect. And for a year straight, he kept being like, manage up, you got it. You can't, because sometimes you don't know other things that I'm shielding you from. And then I'm off trying to be a superhero and then maybe causing more of a mess behind the scenes. So I think that was brilliant advice, actually. Could have used that in 2018.
Right? I know. And I think it comes to, it's exactly what you're saying. I think now that we are business owners, we get to see it in, on the flip side.
Right,
and
right.
you never know what's going on. And they have, so much on their plate. So like, it's not, it's the end of the world to you to go approach them. But to them, that is, take away like that very small thing. It's a part of their day that they might find refreshing to have feedback or have, be able to have a conversation that's not about something that, like we know can seem like just the end of the world or,
Exactly.
all those, like all the problems that you have on your plate or all the things you have to deal with.
See, perfect. And then the final question is this. Complete this sentence. The best way to handle a toxic work environment is to blank.
I would say to control what you can control and plan your exit strategy, I guess. I've been in a situation where I've been in a very toxic work environment where the weirdest and rudest comments have been made. And I'm not like tooting my own horn, but if I was more sensitive, it would not have been good. And I luckily had a supportive husband where I could get out of that situation. I know not everyone has that luxury. But if you can control what you can control, and that being your exit plan, there would be a light at the end of the tunnel and an end to something that someone should never have to subject themselves to, that there's an end. I think that's the main thing. It's,
That's perfect.
Very unfortunate, but
yes.
It happens a lot. So
absolutely. Oh, I love that. What about you,
Control
Jamey?
what you can control is a J.Lowery mantra.
Yeah.
And
yes.
we say it all the time. And it's easy. Obviously, your immediate reaction to that question is get out. But,
right.
We obviously are aware that, not everyone has, like Margaret said, like that luxury of just, waiting in between that limbo period where you're not getting paid and like you're waiting for something else. Like not everyone can have that. So it's not always that black and white, but in the meantime, all you can control is you. And you can't change people always, but you can control the way that you respond.
I love that. Yeah. It's like the serenity prayer that, Lord knows I got to call on that some days. But with that, ladies, thank you so much for such a beautiful, honest, and vulnerable conversation. It's been so much fun. I'm sure listeners are now obsessed with you and now want to know where they can keep up with you on social media. So where can everyone check out the line and keep up with everything going on?
Well, yeah, like I said, we just dropped our fall-winter collection, so we'd love to see all of you for Christmas. Ho, ho, ho.
Exactly.
But our website is shopjlowery.com. And our Instagram handle, if you want to follow along with us and be most up to date, is probably there. And that is also at shopjlowery. So we would love to stay in touch with you.
Awesome. Thank you, ladies, both so much. And I will see all of you next week.